I built an office pod on the ceiling because there was nowhere good in my workshop to work on my computer. But just building this thing was so difficult that I didn't have time to finish the interior. But today, we're finally fixing that and turning this bare plywood into the office pod of my dreams. Let me show you how. It's a mini version of the office pod to help explain all the projects. That was like 3 days of work. Oh my gosh. The first thing I wanted to upgrade was this bare plywood floor. It makes the pod feel really unfinished, more like an attic than an office, and I decided to cover it with carpet squares from the hardware store. Now, throughout the first part of this video, you're gonna notice that the lighting in the pod is horrible. I wasn't aware of how bad it was until after I looked at this footage, so sorry about that. But I brought up some filming lights after this, so now it should look better on camera, but getting the lighting really nice in the pod with permanent lights is going to be one of the major goals of this project. But first, I need to introduce you to my stunt double. So after I made the first office pod video, a lot of people commented saying they were worried about the fact that my chair sits on top of the trap door. I'm essentially blocking the only entrance, so if something terrible were to happen, let's say I passed out in the pod, emergency personnel wouldn't be able to get inside, which is a fantastic point. This thing needs an escape hatch. In the original design, I was actually planning on putting the main door on the side of the pod, but I decided not to because it would take a huge chunk out of the dome and kind of ruin the look. But a little emergency exit can easily be built out of the existing triangles, and it also allows me to access my storage loft directly from the pod. Oh! I was not expecting that to work so well. Wow, that's amazing. Next up, it was time to get the pod looking fresh. Since brightening up the interior was a big goal of this project, I decided to paint the inside white. First things first, I had to remove the desk, and I wasn't actually sure if this was going to be possible considering I built the dome around the desk, but somehow there was just enough room to lower it through the trapdoor. That works. I removed all the windows and covered the openings with paper because I was going to be using a spray gun and I wanted to avoid covering everything in my shop with a fine mist of white. Now, when I first saw all of these drip marks, the perfectionist inside of me was screaming. But then I took a step back and realized that I actually like how this looks. My original vision for the outside of the pod was to kind of have the color scheme of a concrete wall covered in graffiti, but it was actually too perfect before. All these drips and splatters give it kind of a post-apocalyptic character that is honestly so much cooler than what it was before. And as for the inside of the pod, it feels so bright in here, like a completely different space from before. This made a huge difference, and it was about to change even more once I got the windows back in, but as many of you commented, this scratched polycarbonate looks pretty terrible.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the?
Just to set the record straight, I did get all of this material for free, that's why it's scratched, but it it needed changing. And after working in the pod for a couple months, I realized that I never really look out the windows, but I still wanted ambient light from the workshop, so I decided to frost the windows. Figuring out how to do this was a whole saga. My original plan was to laser etch them with the Bamboo Lab H2D. The massive build area actually fits the windows, but the internet was keen to tell me that putting polycarbonate in a laser is a very bad idea. Then I took them to the CNC to try and carve a cool wavy pattern, but this melted and deformed the plastic. And eventually, I realized that 90% of the time, KISS holds the solutions to your problems, and sanding each triangle with 220 grit frosted them perfectly. With the last of the windows in place, it was finally time to tackle the biggest project of the interior, covering this entire back wall in moss. If you watched my last video, you probably understand that I am a huge fan of green walls. But this time, instead of building an entire living ecosystem, I thought I'd achieve this effect with preserved moss. This is real moss that's had its water replaced with a glycerin-based solution, so it still feels soft and alive, it just doesn't require water. I got this preserved moss from By Nature Design, which is a local company here in Vancouver, but they ship all around Canada and the US. The first step of building the wall was to make these cork panels. Sorry, Bamboo, but the H2D is a little too small for this, so I used the big laser cutter at my local hackspace. Now, before I started this project, I assumed I'd be able to just glue the moss directly to the plywood wall. But if you did that, the moss would just fall right off before the glue had a chance to harden. Better to work with gravity. This white stuff that you see me applying is tile glue. You spread this on the cork and then just press your moss into place. This works great for pole moss, which are the pieces that look like little pillows, and for the sheet moss, which, well, it comes in sheets. But the reindeer moss, which is that really fluffy stuff, the tile glue doesn't really stick to it, so I attach that to the cork with hot glue. Before I screwed the moss panels into the wall, I wanted to add an LED strip around the perimeter of the moss. I had a vision for how I wanted all of this to look, but when I turned on the LED strip for the first time, I could tell that this was gonna be even cooler than I imagined.
Ooh. Okay.
I was honestly quite nervous about mounting the moss panels. They're pretty heavy and awkward to move. I had spent days creating this pattern, and I didn't want to destroy it right at the end. But they went right up, just took a little trimming, and dude, look at this. I mean, it looks so good. The light peeking out from the edges of the moss, like so much better than I could have hoped for.
Wow, this looks so good. This looks like out of like a millennial girl's dream.
Don't show up, don't come out.
Well, I might have the taste of a millennial girl, but this still felt like a huge win, and it gave me the fuel I needed to wrestle the desk back into the office pod. Now, in the first video, I spent a lot of time trying to fix the sag in the desk with a plywood beam, and it did help a little bit, but hey, this is 2025. We've got stronger materials. So I went to a local metal shop and picked up this beefy piece of aluminum tubing. I couldn't just toenail this to the wall like I did with the plywood beam. Well, I guess I could, I just wanted something stronger and better, so I decided to design custom 3D printed brackets. I wanted the brackets to be strong enough to support the weight of someone sitting on the desk, so I needed to print them from an engineering material, which made them a great test for the sponsor of this video, the all-new Bamboo Lab H2D. This machine is an all-in-one personal manufacturing hub. You already saw me use the dual extruder 3D printer, laser engraver, and cutting modules to make the scale model, but the H2D can do so much more than create miniatures. Out of the box, it's ready to print high-performance filaments with active chamber heating and a high-temperature hot end. I wanted to use this carbon fiber reinforced nylon, but this stuff needs to be dried at a very high temperature, which is no problem for the brand new AMS HT. When Bamboo released the H2D, they also released the AMS2 Pro, which includes active filament drying, but the AMS HT, also brand new, this baby can pump the heat up to 85 degrees Celsius, allowing it to dry these high-performance materials and feed them directly into the printer. So even though these brackets are printed from carbon fiber reinforced nylon, I was pretty nervous about the strength. they're just not that beefy. If these were printed out of PLA, they would surely break. So I was curious to see how they performed.
The desk is so much stiffer. I really want to sit on it to test the strength of those 3D printed brackets, but do we just try it? Do we just do it for the content? Okay, here we go. Here we go. Oh, feet are off the ground. Wow, all right, that's crazy. It can support my weight. Woo! That is so cool. All right.
So a few minutes ago, I mentioned that fixing the lighting in the office pod would be a major part of this renovation, and I couldn't hide from it any longer. I've been using this little filming light, and when I turn it off, you can see just how bad the light really is. My friend Joey from the YouTube channel Man Made is really big on adding cool lights to his projects. So before I started on the renovation, I gave him a call to get his ideas.
What's up, dude?
I'll show you the vision. This entire bare plywood wall behind me is gonna get covered in preserved moss.
So I thought it would look kind of cool if, like, behind your moss, you put like those like little like twinkly fairy lights.
Ooh.
To make it look like it has like dew on it. I don't know, like sparkly kind of.
Don't show up,
That might be a little more effeminate than you were looking for.
don't come out.
But the other idea I had was, I mean, like, I don't have a lot of great ideas, but the other idea I had, Govee has rope lights. I believe they're called the Govee Rope Light 2s or something like that. They bend in a way that you can kind of like write with them or like make designs, you know, like a big M or something, or if you're feeling egotistical, or you know, live, laugh, love.
Yeah, like the millennial wedding.
Don't stop caring.
That's my idea.
Nice, I like it.
Do you hate it?
If you don't wanna see me dancing
Well,
with
it's nice to know that Joey is also a millennial girl at heart, and sometimes you gotta just lean into it. Honestly, the neon light nestled in the moss was a little too wedding vibes for me, but I was really into the fairy lights. Obviously, they won't really add any usable light to the space, but that's next on the list. So at this point, it should be no surprise that I want to use this space for filming. I mean, look at it.
Look at it! Look at it!
But I don't want this to only be a film set. Most of the time, I'm gonna be working in, Most of the time, I'm gonna be working in here on my computer. And filming lights like the one I have there, they're actually really terrible for working because they shine directly in your face. In my home office, I have these streaming lights. Most of the time, they're facing the wall to create cozy ambient light. And then when I'm filming a talking head portion, I turn them around to shine into my face. Now, I could just use those streaming lights for the office pod. That's one of them right there. But I think I can design something way cooler. And each of these hubs has a 1/4-20 threaded insert. So I basically have this modular system to mount anything I want to the walls. Okay, so these lights need to achieve 4 objectives. Provide cozy ambient light and intense filming light. They need to be mountable on the hubs of the office pod. And the 4th objective, well, we'll get to that one later. My theory was that I could achieve the dual lighting objective through a 2-color rotating lampshade. I split this shape into 2 halves, one that is slightly thicker than the other, and I used the color painting tool in Bamboo Studio to get those 2 halves to print in 2 different filaments. Now, the thicker side is being printed from white PETG, and the thinner side, which is only 2 perimeters thick, that's transparent PETG. It was so cool seeing the dual extruder on the H2D go to town. It's actually crazy how fast it changes filaments. These wood PLA pieces make up the wall bracket, and designing these actually took a fair bit of engineering because the walls of the office pod are obviously not straight. But once again, having a 3D model of the entire space came in clutch because I could just measure the angle of the wall and figure out how I needed to mount the lights so that they would be vertical. The last piece to make was the thing that would hold the light bulb. I decided to laser cut this piece out of this 3mm sapele plywood. There's a 0% chance I pronounced that right. Sapele? Sapele? Sapele?
Sapele.
I cut it out of this 3mm sapele plywood to add to the warm, cozy vibe that I was going for. All right, I know I've talked a lot about the H2D in this video, but honestly, the fact that I could do all of these crafts on one machine that is user-friendly, fast, and safe, I haven't even talked about the smoke purifier or all the integrated safety features. This machine is really an all-in-one DIY powerhouse. If you have a lot of ideas and not a lot of space, or a kid with a lot of ideas, might be worth getting.
All right, lighting reveal in 3, 2, 1. Oh, that looks so good. Dude, the light right in front of the moss. I didn't put one on this side because the trap door is right there, but I don't know. I'm split. Either I want it symmetrical or like the asymmetry is kind of nice.
In this shot, the lights are all in filming mode, and when I spin the shades around, you can see how much the light drops. It's so warm and cozy. I don't think the video really does it justice because photographing lights is extremely difficult. Now, I teased a fourth objective for these lights, and you might have guessed from my love of plants and greenery, I want to have living plants in the office pod, and all of these bulbs are actually grow lights. My friend Brian from Lofted Goods designs beautiful 3D printable plant pots, so I downloaded some of my favorites and printed them from different colors of wood PLA. Each of these pots mounts to the wall with a sliding dovetail. I actually modified this dovetail for my lamp design, which I think technically violates Brian's terms of use. So Brian, please don't sue me. Love you, bro. Each pot also has a secret removable bottom for catching excess water. The plants were looking great, but it felt like there needed to be more.
You think we need one more? You think we need one more? All right, we'll get one more.
I rode over to Home Depot, picked up this giant pothos, and planted it in Brian's biggest 3D printable pot. I wanted to drape all the vines over the lamps, but they weren't quite long enough, so I used those 3D printed cable organizers to attach vines to the wall, and it looks so cool. It's like there's this octopus alien on my desk. Part of me wanted to keep going and completely fill this space with plants, and I'm sure I'll add more over time, but for now, there were some more important finishing touches that I needed to do. I printed this really cool desk organizer, another one of Brian's designs, to try and fight my tendency to have an absolute disaster of a desk. I also designed this simple backpack hook, added a wall-mounted power bar, and I discovered that I really like working in here with the escape hatch open, so I added this pulley system so I can open it from the inside. One of my favorite movies as a kid was the Swiss Family Robinson. They have this amazing tree house with all of these mechanisms, and this really brings back those childhood memories. A lot of you commented that I should add a trash chute, but I'm happy to report that the escape hatch also solves that problem.
Kobe. Oh my God, I actually got it. All right, all these little upgrades are cool and all, but there is still a giant, massive, stinking problem with the office pod that I have been avoiding this entire video.
This problem has been torturing me for the past few months. I carried out pages of engineering calculations, consulted with experts, tried to learn how to use brushless DC motors and giant pneumatics, all because the way I currently get into the office pod is so stupid. Not only is this stepladder ugly and inconvenient, it actually blocks my front door. And I know I can build an awesome way to get up here, but I think I need your help. Let me know in the comments your ideas for a better way to get into the pod. I don't want to say exactly what I was thinking because I don't want to influence your ideas, but if you go back and pause on my engineering calculations, you can probably figure it out. Aside from that, I am so happy with where the office pod stands right now. It's just such a conducive environment for focusing. Bro, I am locked in. Whether this is the first you've heard of the Office Pod or you've been here since the first video, thank you for coming on this adventure with me and allowing me to build crazy things like this for a living. I honestly can't imagine a better job in the world. And I guess the Office Pod story will continue because I have to replace that stepladder. I also might be moving soon, so subscribe to see how I move the office pod. Maybe I'll buy a mini truck and put it on the back. Special thanks to my top supporters on YouTube memberships and Patreon, Paige Arlt, Luis Armendariz, and my mom, Kathy Kert. Love you, Mom.